Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Independence City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, September 14th, 2021, and it's 6:30 in the evening. Let the record show that Kathy Martin-Willis is out. She's excused this evening, and Councilor Roden is with us by telephone. And the rest of everybody is here and happily here. So, councilors, you have the minutes from the August 24th meeting in front of you. Do they meet with your approval?
Move to accept the meetings as written.
I have a motion to accept.
Second it.
Second by Councilor Job. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Councilor Roden, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to go to visitor comment. I'm going to remind everybody for visitor comment, each person can have up to 5 minutes, and this is an opportunity for council to listen. We're not necessarily going to respond or take any action, but we are here to listen. So that's what we will do. So the first person we're going to have speak is Abby Fitz.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Welcome to council.
Thank you. I brought some friends. I'm Abby Fitz. This is my son Josh Fitz. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Bradley Beasley.
Bradley Beasley.
I'm Eli Beasley. I'm Leah Beasley.
Thank you for listening for a few minutes. I'll be brief. I appreciate your willingness to invest in the Independent Sports Park. We're grateful for that space. I'm sure you already know a great deal about the impact that a sports park down furthering that sports park down there would have on local businesses. I won't crunch numbers with you tonight. What I'd like to sort of impart to you is that at a time like right now, especially right now, investing in our children would be a very worthwhile use of funds. I think it's fair to say that in our community, we feel racked with concern. I think it's fair to say that in our community, we see red lights flashing. We see alarm bells ringing about the impact of some of the things that have happened in our community for our kids. And so I understand that there's many ways to invest in our children. One of those ways would be by investing further in the sports park downtown. We can increase space for these kids, many of whom have now seen 2, maybe 3 seasons of sports go the wayside. That's 2 to 3 years in a kid's life that they haven't played sports. That's not advantaged kids. That's kids who maybe don't have anything but sports. We have the space down there. We have the kids. You probably see more than I do. I mean, our town is increasing. We're growing. We have kids. We have the space. And this is an investment. I understand that. And this might be something for you to consider, that it might be an investment in our local businesses as well. It might be an investment in our current kids. But it could also be considered an investment in our future children. So these kids and many other kids that a sports park down at Independent Sports Park would provide will come back. They're going to come back with their kids. They're going to come back and coach. So we might consider that such an investment would reap a generational, manifold benefit on the City of Independence, both now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Good to see you. Okay, next person is Monica Hecht. Hecht? Good evening. Hey, you're from over in Monmouth, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here just as a everyday citizen and mom. A lot of chatter going around recently that I got into, and I feel like it's just really important to bring off of the internet screen. A little bit about myself. I have been a volunteer youth coach for over 20 years. In Salem with YMCA, and Skyball, Eugene with kids sports, and here at the high school level and with CYS in a coaching and coordinator capacity. I work part-time as a classified substitute, and I've spent time in every school and in this district and in the district office. My husband is the assistant manager at Les Schwab, so I have some knowledge about the money and sponsorships they have put into this community, and with the high school, CYS, FFA, hoopla, and on and on. It's time for you and the city of Monmouth to invest in our youth. I am a newer member of this community, so everyone I've met has been brand new. When I hear and experience the same frustrations regarding sports and activities in this community from complete strangers, it's time to address the powers that be. That's you, that's CYS, and that's Central School District. Today, I'd like to address the lack of effort and transparency with the one major group that organizes our sports from kindergarten through 6th grade. CYS is a nonprofit draped in a cloak of invisibility for the majority of this community. Questions need to be answered. We have a responsibility to do for our kids, not just sit back and let others put forth the time and effort. And believe it or not, there are so many that want to do, except no one can get through. No one knows who to contact, and sometimes you don't even get a response at all when you ask. Okay, this is CYS I'm talking about. Of course, it's not only CYS. We need to encourage parent participation, and we need government support. People are frustrated, understandably, but we are not talking about college scholarships. We're talking about exercise and mental health. And it's time our cities are taking this seriously. Thanks to COVID, I hear there are millions of dollars coming in from the federal government for our community. Where will you choose to allocate those funds? Will you invest in our youth or in outsiders and tourists? Bringing in more business? I hope not. CSD practically has a monopoly on facilities, which is a problem. They are not the only ones to blame. Our communities are outgrowing what we have available. And I know we're dealing with unprecedented times, but that's not the point. I hope that you all take advantage of the momentum that is happening. It's time for you to address parental concerns about activities in this community. It's time for transparency from CYS and possible restructuring. It's time for parent participation not only with CYS, but at the middle school and the high school. If your kids have aged out of CYS, you should be involved with the Panther Club. I'm not here to come down on the people who are putting in the time and doing the work. I'm here to help start the ball rolling for desperately needed change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to come in. And Shannon Ball, excuse me. Good evening and welcome to City Council.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Shannon Ball, and I've been a resident of the City of Independence for over 17 years. I've listened to the first City of Independence Budget Committee meeting back in May of 2021 and sent an email to all of you City Council members showing my support for funding of the development of a sports park down by the boat launch. I'm here again tonight to strongly support a sports park in Independence, as it'll help our small businesses in our area that especially have been feeling the COVID impact. It will also help the youth, the parents, and the families in our community. The restaurants and downtown shops have been hit hard during the COVID pandemic, and unfortunately some did not make it. Adding to a sports complex will bring hundreds of people into our town to eat at restaurants, look around town shopping while they'll try to kill time between games, and encourage stays in the hotels in Independence and Monmouth. It gives people a reason to come to our small town who otherwise may never come here, and hopefully will enjoy this area and want to come back and visit again. I believe the city has received over $1 million in the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA money, and will receive an additional $1 million next year. Per the ARPA website, the city must spend the money by the end of 2024, and it is strongly encouraged for cities to invest in critical infrastructures because it is a non-reoccurring expenditure that can be targeted to strategically important long-term assets that provide benefits over many years. A sports complex is a great way to spend this money and provide a long-term revenue stream for the city and our businesses. Currently, my daughter participates in softball team in Dallas, as Independence doesn't have a place for youth to have a softball team to practice. The only place we have is school grounds for kids to participate, and those grounds are not suitable to host home competitions for multiple teams. Since this summer, I have traveled to Newburgh, Vancouver, Medford, Bend, Kaiser, and 9 different places over 9 different weekends and, for my daughter to play softball tournaments. At the tournaments, there are a minimum of 9 teams for just one age group, each team paying a substantial entry fee to participate in the tournament. Each team has about 10 to 12 players, so if you do the math, there is anywhere from 90 to 150 families coming to our town and spending money. That doesn't include the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, or friends that also come to watch their grandchildren, niece, nephew play. This is just one example of an activity that could use the sports complex, but there are so many more. Soccer, lacrosse, softball, football, baseball, and not only our youth, but there's adult leagues. West Salem hosts adult rec leagues all the time, and we could be another place to allow them to play. The city would work to establish a model that the sports complex could be self-sustaining once built. I believe the agreement between the City of Independence and the Independence Hotel was if the hotel was not at a certain capacity throughout the year, the Independence residents would then subsidize the hotel. If this statement is not true, I would like more of a vested interest, or if the statement is not true, please let me know, as that's what I've been told. I think it is more of a vested interest in bringing teams and activities to our area so the hotel is used and that Independence residents don't have a higher bill. If that is not the case, please let me know. I strongly encourage you to use the ARPA money for a sports complex that will help our community members, support our local businesses, and support economic development for the years to come. There is a huge demand for this, and I think it'll be a great addition to our community.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Shannon?
Yeah.
I was wondering, what grade is your daughter in for softball?
She is in 5th grade.
So there's nothing for them around here, is it Central Youth Sports that she's in, or?
No, she is in Dallas Kids Inc. Because she did do softball in 3rd grade here, but we were constantly competing for a place to practice, and so we were actually driving to Adair Village to practice.
Wow.
With kids from a central team, because there's no place to practice here.
Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
ended up going to Dallas.
Thank you for
Thank you
taking
very
the
much.
time.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that our city manager can address that hotel question when it comes to his report, please. Or do you want to just take it?
I'll just address it right now. Yeah, we have absolutely no ongoing agreements with the hotel regarding occupancy or level. So I don't know where you heard that. That was never true and is not true today. So
Thank you for following up on that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue moving.
Could I ask one question before you move on?
Okay.
When is the next time that this council has a goal-setting session?
Probably wintertime.
That would be the appropriate time to address something like this, and if anyone has input they want to give to the council, we would appreciate having it before that goal-setting session, because the council has to look at the entire community and try to decide what are the best goals moving forward and what are most effective.
And I believe that is in our goal setting already, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we have it in our goal setting.
It's in the capital improvement
Yeah,
plan.
it's
It's
all
about where
it's all
it
in there,
fits in
and
the
I think
timeline.
we're
Okay.
going to hear a few things as things evolve. So thank you. Okay.
I think she had one more question. Shannon did.
Sorry. I thought you guys were talking about the ARPA money today, and so that's part of the reason why
Yes.
we came. So.
That'll happen a little later on the agenda. Yeah, we will. Moving forward with reports, first of all, I have in front of you a couple of commission appointments. You see them in your packet. Leslie Horriton and Kevin Kritzinger, and you've received information.
Yes,
You meet
and-
with your approval.
Yes, and I move to approve both of these people for appointments to the stated positions.
A motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Counselor Takis. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Under my report, a couple of things just to keep you informed. As you know, that I serve on the Council of Governments Board of Directors, and that's 43 member governments through Polk, Marion, and Yamhill. And I'm also on that legislative committee, and we will be putting together some convenings to help our legislators understand some of the issues that and funding issues that cities and counties throughout the region. We'll be doing some things on homelessness, housing, transportation, infrastructure, and we'll keep you informed on that. And since some of those presentations will be daytime, they will be recorded so you can watch them later on. And it's trying to help our legislators understand the issues that cities and counties are dealing with. I had a chance to meet with the new Oregon Community Foundation Program Officer. Had a chance to meet with Commissioner Mordhorst about transportation issues in our region, specifically Highway 22 and 51. It keeps moving. They're getting the planning done through ODOT, and it just keeps moving, but it is a very positive motion. You did have the joy of attending the Henry Hill Block Party. That was kind of fun seeing some folks, and had a chance to visit and speak at the Community Fiesta. And that was a wonderful community event, and I really enjoyed that. Mr. City Manager, I think the ball's to you. Please.
So thank you, Mayor and Councilors. I'm going to just do a couple of quick things for my report and then kind of just roll into the next item, which is a presentation regarding the American Rescue Plan. And I'm just going to kind of kick that off and then turn it over to Sean and Courtney to talk about some more specifics regarding kind of where we're at and where we're going. So just a quick note, I'm going to be out of the office from the 22nd to the 27th, so just letting you know. And then we have heard from the contractor that they're going to start the F Street Bridge project in early October. So they actually have kind of put that project to the side because they're pretty busy doing some other stuff, but they still have plenty of time to get the project done. So there's been a little bit of a delay in getting that started, but it's up and coming here soon. So those were the only comments that I had, but before I launch into the presentation, do you guys have any questions for me?
Here's the presentation.
All right, well, hearing none, we have a few slides. And, you know, we're going to be kind of spending some time over the next number of months really kind of laying out exactly what maximizing our ARPA funds is going to look like. And we've kind of talked about this during the budget process to kind of give an overview of just what we were thinking. But, you know, as time goes on, we get a lot more information and we get a lot more details about exactly what needs to happen. And so tonight, I'm not going to really get down into the weeds of anything. We are going to talk quite a bit about our business support program because of the timeliness of what we need to do there. So I'm going to give you kind of just a quick overview of the ARPA funding, talk about the funds that are coming directly to independents, kind of eligible uses for what those funds can be used for, matching funds, just to kind of really start talking about that because that's really everything that we hear. If you want to maximize your ARPA allocation, then you need to be aggressive about finding matching funds because we get a small slice, and I'll show you this in a minute, of the funds. The bulk of the funds are actually going to other organizations which are looking for partners. And they're looking to partner with local jurisdictions, they're looking to partner with others, just like they did through the CARES Act. And so, you know, you can turn your allocation into a much larger allocation by making sure that you're wisely going after the opportunities as they present themselves. And then finally, we'll kind of talk tonight, the detail and the majority of this presentation is really going to be focused on business support. And I'll kind of get into the reasons why for that, but it really comes down to timing. Timing and what we know and kind of where we're at. So if you go to the next slide, I don't know if you all can see that. Hopefully it shows up a little bit better for you than it does on the screen. But if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see the monies that are going to the state and local jurisdictions. So if that whole big square represents 1.9 trillion, this graphic from PFM Consulting Group kind of shows you what's actually going to the state, counties, and cities. So as you can see, there's a lot of other money going to a lot of other places. And that's really what kind of makes this ARPA funding a little bit of a challenge, why we start talking about matching funds, why we talk about partnering, why we're talking about, you know, how do you take your allocation and make it bigger because you're partnering with other groups that are getting monies through this program that aren't coming directly to the cities.
Tom, can I ask a question about the slide?
Yes.
Why are restaurants singled out when there's already a small business?
That was this was the original bill that they put together. So restaurants, I think, was an emergency issue that they were dealing with at the time, and they were trying to get the money.
So there might be some flexibility in this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this was early on, and certainly a lot of these monies that you see in here are actually going to go to federal programs, and so they're going to get dispersed through the EDA. For example, EDA is getting a huge chunk of money.
Yeah.
HUD's getting a huge chunk of money. A lot of that's still getting figured out at the federal level, and so we don't know exactly how to best posture ourselves to move forward, and I'll kind of talk about that later. But I just wanted to point out that, 1.9 trillion is a lot of money. This was done early in this year, and the monies are just coming out down to the local level now. So if you go to the next slide, that bottom corner that I showed you was actually 350 billion. So that bottom corner then is separated into other categories. And you can see there in the 19.5 billion that's allocated to cities of population less than 50,000, that's where the $2 million that we've been talking about comes through. So $1 million literally just came in, I think it was 2 weeks ago, finally. And $1 million will come in a year from 2 weeks ago, essentially. But as you can see, that's a pretty small allocation compared to the whole 350 billion that's put out there. So again, this is where not only at the federal level, you're also going to see a tremendous amount of money at the state level, because if you take a look at the pie there, the states and DC got the bulk of the money. And that means that they're working on programs to figure out how to get that money out in different ways. Even if you add up all the cities and the counties, it still doesn't meet with the states, but the counties got a big chunk as well. So that's when I start talking about maximizing the ARPA funds, when I talk about matching funds and everything, that's what this is really about, is because we only got a really small piece of the pie, states or cities did. Last time during CARES, we actually got no piece of the pie. It all went to the state level, and then everything trickled through the state programs. A lot of money is still going to trickle through the state programs, and we know that, and the state is working on lots of different programs to figure that out. It's a big task for them. Business Oregon is doubling their staff to try to figure this out. They're coming up with programs, but unfortunately, those programs aren't coming out until the end of the year or beginning of next year, probably more likely. So that really puts us kind of in a difficult timing spot because we want to leverage these funds. We want to make sure that we're being responsible to get these monies out. We have $2 million. We need to spend $2 million. That would be the responsible thing to do, but we need to find areas that have been impacted by COVID, that meet the rules of the eligibility, and we'll talk a little bit about what the big categories are, but there's dozens and dozens and hundreds of pages of rules and stuff about how you can actually spend the money. It's a reporting process that need to go on. I'm not going to get into any of that tonight because it's really complicated, and we'll figure those things out as we figure out where we're actually going to activate the money in.
Can I ask a quick question? So you're saying that we've just got a check for $1 million.
Correct.
But we really will not know the best way to spend it until probably after the first of the year.
That's right. And so that's jumping ahead, kind of getting to the bottom of where I'm going with this is we want to partner. We want to make sure that we're doing things. When we did the CARES program, for example, almost every business support program we did, and every, even the resident support programs that we did, we partnered with Monmouth or the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. Almost all that money came from the state, and certainly or the federal government, and so there were lots of partnerships that were going on. The problem with the CARES is everything was moving so fast, there wasn't really time to get before you and kind of talk about what was going on, why we're doing what we're thinking. And that's why tonight, Sean and Courtney are here to actually, before we even get to spending the money, to actually talk to you about, well, this is what our thinking is and what is our plan, and make sure that you guys are on board with that. We didn't have time for that during the CARES process, but we do have time for that now. The challenge is we would like to be partnering with different programs to do business support, but winter's coming, and knowing that our businesses are still struggling, they're still trying to recover, one of the
A few $100,000.
Yeah. Counselor?
Tom, are we actually getting $2 million, or is some of that going to filter through state programs?
No, we actually got like a little over $1 million in our bank account a little while ago. So, but we can turn that $1 million into 3 or 4, depending on how we're able to partner with other organizations and leverage that. And that's kind of the whole goal of part of this, is to make sure.
Is it possible that we could still get some filter down money from the state over and above that?
Absolutely, that's the whole goal. Well, I mean, probably not in a direct allocation.
Right, I
but
mean,
through a
through state program,
through a
right.
grant program, through, opportunities to use those funds as matching funds. That's our anticipation. We want to grow this 2 million to 4 or 6 or 8. I mean, whatever we can, by being smart and being very aggressive of going out after this. And that's one of the reasons we want to do the business support program now, because that puts us in a great position when the state does come up with those programs and say, hey, look, we're already doing this, we already have this program, we want to grow it this way, and we want to do this and make sure that we're moving forward. But I'll let Sean and Courtney talk about that.
What is the deadline for spending the $1 million?
The deadline for spending the monies is the end of the calendar year 2024. Actually, the monies have to be allocated, but for infrastructure projects, you can actually drag that out until sometime in 2026. So they've kind of changed the rules from what you're seeing here on this. But I think the business support and the resident support probably need to be spent by the end of 2024, but infrastructure projects, they're going to allow you to push out a little bit further because they recognize that, you have a lot of planning, and sometimes these projects are complicated, so.
And it also means that includes the other $1 million that we're going to get next year, because we haven't got all of it now. We just got $1 million. We'll get the next.
That's right. So we need to be somewhat, judicious about getting this figured out. And I am a little bit frustrated that, we aren't at that point where we can activate this money better. The larger cities got their allocations back in February and March. And so they've already spent hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars activating their monies and getting them out there. Although they're holding back as well, because they're also looking for partnership opportunities.
I have a question too.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Roden.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when we do this, that we're just not, we're being very strategic on giving money out, because I know a lot of people have already gotten a lot of stimulus checks and money from the government. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that what we do is we invest in things that will give us a long-term return on our investment. Not just we hand out money and then it's gone. If we invest in infrastructure that can pay itself back and be a benefit to everybody in the community, those are the projects we need to look for. Instead of just finding businesses you know, I appreciate us finding businesses that need help, but the way we can help businesses the most is to find a long-term solution to the economic struggle that's been happening in Independence for decades.
So that's what today's presentation is, and I'm going to ask the manager to continue with his presentation, because I think a lot of those questions are going to get answered. Continue, Mr. Pessemer.
Yeah, so, and thank you, and, you know, technical assistance programs are some of the stuff that we've talked about before, and those really provide long-term benefits for businesses, so we're excited to do more of that. And first off, you know, quite frankly, I'm glad you guys are asking questions. This is really a presentation, but it's really meant to be kind of more of a work session type topic, so I appreciate it. If you can go to the next slide, I kind of want to talk a little bit about infrastructure, because infrastructure is a big part. A lot of cities are pretty much going to take all of their money and put it into infrastructure programs. I'm afraid that some of those cities are actually going to just spend their entire allocation on an infrastructure program for them without looking at partnering or leveraging the money or finding matching funds and going after grants, because then you get a one-to-one return on what you received. And we're trying to be much more strategic than that, and trying to make sure that whatever we do brings back at least $1, if not multiple dollars for every dollar we spend on, especially on infrastructure. So what we don't know, and you probably have all read about this and heard about this in the news, it's in the news all the time, is there's been some sort of a commitment to spend $1 million-ish trillion, or $1 trillion-ish on an infrastructure package. That's something that's been talked about, and that's a big deal for us to figure out, okay, how are we going to allocate those monies that we have? Because there are certain categories that infrastructure package is going to go to. But that infrastructure package is hung up by some X trillion-dollar reconciliation program. Now that is also going to have monies that could also be used for resident support and other kind of partnering opportunities. So until those things actually make it through the federal government, we don't really know how we can use our monies to match monies in those pots in order to move forward. I think we'll know a lot more at the state level, because the state has their allocation, and they kind of have similar spending categories that I think is going to come out of the infrastructure package. But we're definitely trying to figure out, okay, how do we best maximize congressional directed spending or earmarks, and how do we maximize the infrastructure plan? How do we best maximize the reconciliation plan, and just the state monies that are coming out as well. So there's a lot of question marks out there. I'll be really honest on the infrastructure. I can't tell you what our best opportunity is going to be there, because I simply don't know where the monies are going to be, how they're going to be distributed from the other organizations.
I do have one question on that.
Yes.
Is infrastructure pretty much sewer, water, roads, broadband?
It is, for the state level, it is water, broadband, and probably sewer. They're kind of not committing to doing sewer projects yet. For the infrastructure package coming through the federal government, it's broadband, water, sewer, and transportation. And transportation takes up huge dollars.
Right.
So, you know, you'll see a lot of that $1 trillion get eaten up in transportation packages pretty quick. But those are really the four categories.
Thank you.
That are probably going to be most available for using to matching funds, at least from everything that we've heard. Now, there are going to be other programs that are out there through the EDA and others that, you know, we're tracking and kind of going after. So, but those are the basic categories. So, great question. So, kind of what we talked about and what we actually structured in the budget for this year. You want to go to the next slide, is really for the total $2 million that we're getting, so for not only this year's allocation, but for next year's allocation as well, is about $250,000 in business support, $250,000 in resident support, so between the two, about $500,000 to find matching opportunities to make sure that our businesses can thrive and can be prepared for the long run and do the things that they need to do to get through what they are recovering from COVID from now, and that they're going to need additional support in the future. We know that. Resident support, that's something that I'm going to talk to you about at the end, because I think that's an opportunity for you guys to actually give us some thoughts and some input on where you think the best opportunities are there, because most of those programs are programs that the city doesn't typically do. We certainly do certain things, but mostly it's partners. It's at the county level, or it's at one of the nonprofit levels, or it's at the state level, or something where that resident support programs, the money comes for. A good example of that's like rental assistance. So rental assistance is something that if we wanted to spend our $250,000 on just a rental assistance program, we would help, maybe a couple dozen people, and we would be out of money. But 90% of the money for that program still hasn't been spent at the federal level. So for us, it's probably more intelligent for us to try to figure out how to reach into our community and find how to match those monies up with other programs out there that already exist, who can actually come in with much bigger pockets to actually serve that need. So I'm going to challenge you guys at the end of this and to actually kind of start helping us figure out, what do you think, being out there in the community and having close contacts, would be the best areas for us to focus on in resident support. We'll do some utility assistance, we know that, and we'll do some other things. But these are typically partner type of organizations that we tend to deal with. And maybe 250 is the right number, maybe it's too high, and we want to move some of it one way or another. We still have some flexibility there, but this, I think, is a pretty good estimate from the beginning of actually how we'll probably can serve our community the best and make sure that we're supporting our businesses, supporting our residents, and making sure that we're looking towards the long run by creating infrastructure to move things forward.
And when you say 250,000, you're saying 125,000 this year, 125,000 next year?
Essentially, yes. I think that's, I think our goal is to get it spent in the next 2 years. We could go a third year if we wanted, if we had some left over. But essentially, yes, that's what we have in the budget. We have 125,000 for, or we have $250,000 for a business resident support in the budget, and then we have the remainder there for infrastructure.
Clarification on infrastructure here is that, if I recall correctly, many of the federal and/or state programs, there's a matching requirement. Yes. So it's 80-20, 75-25, and so our best use would be to having to make sure that we have resources available for us to do the match, so that if we have to do a 20% match or whatever that is, making sure that we have our ARPA funds available to do that, so that we can access the 80%. And that's what you're talking about, part of those partnerships with federal agencies and state agencies. That's right.
That's exactly what I'm talking about for matching funds, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, making the best use of the funds from the beginning. So
can I ask a question about the resident support? You brought up, helping people with their rent. Is that a program within the City of Independence specifically?
No.
Or?
And that's what I'm getting at.
Okay, because there's like Section 8 housing, there's state funds, there's all of that over there. So I guess I agree with being able to only help a few people.
Right. Exactly. And so I don't think that would be a wise use of that money, to be honest with you, because there are other programs out there that do that well. I think what I want to know, though, is where, based on what you've seen during COVID, where is the biggest need in our community? And it's probably almost always going to be a partner that we're trying to work with to actually get the money out. It's probably not going to be a lot of our money, but we do have matching money there to help them. And maybe it's just administrative costs, and maybe it's, other things. Maybe it's even, supporting a part-time staff person for them to be able to, put together that program. But you are out there talking to constituents. You know what's going on a lot more in this community than we do in other areas. Certainly we have our own ideas, but I think it would be really beneficial to hear from you guys. And I'll send you an email asking for you guys to give us that feedback. So don't feel like you need to just do something. Take your time. We'll have a few weeks, but I'll give you. It's
not a tonight thing.
Yeah. So eligible uses. So if you take a look at the next slide, there's really 4 categories. And this is where I'm taking a very, very broad brush to this because this is what they announced. And really the first bullet point there is, public emergency assistance to households, small business, nonprofits, tourism, travel, hospitality. That's something that we're gonna, focus on because that's something that we do a lot of at the local level and it makes a lot of sense for us to do. The second item, to respond to workers performing essential work during COVID-19, providing premium pay. We already took care of this. This is mostly our police department, and we did this during the collective bargaining that we had with them, and we put this into the budget. So we kind of feel like unless something new comes up, this item is probably taken care of, and we've already budgeted for it. So that's something I haven't highlighted because I don't think there's anything else for us significantly to do at this point at our level. And then for the provision of government services, the extent of reduction in revenue due for COVID-19, we certainly had some revenue hits, but they weren't significant. And part of the problem is they have a very complicated formula. And part of what we saw in the same year is we also saw some additional tax revenue coming in and some other things which kind of offsets some of the losses that we have. So I think it's probably going to be pretty challenging for us to demonstrate that we had significantly revenue losses. We certainly did in other areas and we'll take advantage of that, but it's not going to be a huge dollar amount. So again, I haven't highlighted it because I don't think that we're going to be looking for significant dollars going to that bullet item. I will tell you, some cities though are very excited about backfilling their coffers, and some of them actually who lost transient lodging tax and other things during this, did suffer, pretty significantly. So they probably will have a different attitude to that bullet point than we do, but I don't see any significant money going there. And then finally, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So this is really, again, the ARPA monies. ARPA is a new term we use for the American Rescue Plan Act. That's where their focus is. The infrastructure bill, if and when it gets out of Congress, will actually probably throw transit in there as well. So those will be the uses that are primarily supported. So I think I actually covered most everything along with your questions. So we definitely will be having some future conversations. I really just want to kick off the business support piece tonight because 1, we want to get out ahead of it, and 2, we recognize that we really don't have time to wait. I mean, we're really looking to activate this money beginning November 1st through, really I'm saying through the end of January. So a 3-month period where we basically can make sure that our businesses are staying through once the weather hits and we know that our businesses have downtime. But we want to get, engaged. We want to make sure we have good programs. We want to make sure that we're in line so when those state monies do come out, we can already talk about the successes that we've had to move those forward. And so Sean and Courtney are going to kind of really go into some detail there because it's timely. And I want this to be different and have a different flavor than the CARES Act did. We just didn't have time to come before you and say, here's what we're going to do, or just here's what we did. I hope you like it. And that was just because we just simply didn't have time. There wasn't time to do anything other than that. So anyway, you can expect an email from me asking for your ideas on resident support programs, but I did definitely want to kind of talk about what we're thinking about for at least November through January. And I think some of this money will actually go into February too, I think the way Courtney has her program. But definitely give you the opportunity to hear what we plan on doing and then comment on just your thoughts about what you think we're doing. So unless you have more questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Can we get a copy of these slides for reference, please?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I took copious notes, but I'd like to have that actual statements.
Karen.
Yes, I'll send the full deck to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so Sean, Courtney, take it away.
Good evening, welcome to council.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, appreciate being here tonight. I'm really here to kind of give you some of the high level of how we're approaching this, and then Courtney's going to talk about some of the specific projects we're looking to do. As Tom said, we're really focusing on the period kind of from really kind of in the immediate now through about February. And really the goal is to try to provide this immediate support while we work on larger and more complex programs, projects, and especially opportunities to be able to match and leverage our funding. In a lot of ways, this is picking up where we left off with the CARES money. We tried a lot of things over kind of summer and fall of 2020, and frankly had a lot of success. With promotions, with technical assistance, with a lot of different programs. And so really we're trying to kind of pick that up and keep running with it, take the things that worked and do more of it. So in general, go ahead and flip the next slide, we're approaching our work with the following goals. First off, it's to support businesses or sectors impacted by COVID. The ARPA program, it has more flexible rules than the CARES Act did. In the CARES Act, we had to kind of account for individual businesses or individual people who are receiving support and demonstrate impact on them. With ARPA, you can actually target an entire sector. You still have to demonstrate a COVID impact, but you can demonstrate that COVID impact for an entire, for example, business sector, and you don't have to necessarily demonstrate for each individual business that's receiving support. So, we're going to be focusing a lot on locally owned, what we're calling face-to-face businesses like retail and restaurants, because they were obviously significantly impacted. We're also going to be targeting tourism-related businesses. There's a lot of overlap with restaurant and retail, but there's also some, that are kind of separate there. They were obviously, greatly impacted. And both of these are largely, but not entirely, going to be located in the downtown. The downtown is kind of our core of that type of business, but there are others of those types of businesses throughout the community, and we don't intend to ignore them. And then, of course, where possible, we are going to try to fold in professional services and other types of locally owned small businesses into these programs as well. But that's going to be kind of more on a opportunistic, case-by-case basis, depending on the program and the promotion, because we will have to be able to kind of tie whatever we do for them to that COVID impact. Second, we want to make sure that we ensure the broad access and impact of the programs. We want to try to get as many businesses involved in business sectors involved in the programs and promotions as is possible and practical. We want to make these things the programs easy to access, but in many cases the business owners are still going to need to take some type of proactive action, some sort of affirmative action to participate, even if it's just providing information. We're gonna hold hands and help as much as we can, but at a certain point, the business owners will still have to sort of take some actions to participate. But really, our goal is that if a business doesn't participate in one of our programs, it's either because they weren't eligible for, or because they specifically decided not to, not because they didn't know how to get engaged or otherwise didn't know how to participate. We want everybody to at least feel like they have the opportunity to participate. Next slide. So, Tom covered this pretty well, but it bears repeating. We've had a lot of success over the years leveraging city funds with other grants, other programs to do more. And that was true actually with the CARES money as well. And so we definitely want to continue to stretch our dollars as far as possible. The problem is we need to start doing things now, and we don't have that opportunity to leverage state money or county funds. But you'll see with the programs that we're going to talk about, we are essentially going to try to leverage city funds with private funds. We're going to try to encourage people to spend their own money in businesses that have been impacted by COVID. So even though we're not necessarily leveraging other governmental funds, we're hoping to still leverage our money to create a greater impact for our community.
Excuse me, Sean?
Yep.
With the CARES money, for businesses to get certain support, they had to be registered with Secretary of State. Is that going to be a criteria going forward?
I don't know. I don't believe it's a specific criteria in the ARPA, and so then it would essentially be our determination of how we want to do this to determine eligibility.
Sean, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why our goal would be to help as many businesses as possible when our goal should be to help as many businesses that need it. I think the city has to prove, or a business has to prove their needs of these funds before we just keep handing out this money. I feel like you're trying to provide kind of like this free service to all these businesses and just fork out this money, and we've done that in the past and it's been wasteful. So we need to not do that. We need to, if we're going to spend this money and give it to local businesses, they need to prove a need. Because I know that what we do is sometimes we give it to the same businesses we favored over and over and over again, and then some businesses have never even been reached out to and spoke to about this money. And I know C Street Salon has never been contacted to see if they need any help. We shouldn't just be giving businesses for the money for the sake of giving them money. We need to be able to use this money wisely. And I question the city and its spending habits in the past. And so I'm asking you to be very, very transparent and clear on where we're going to spend this money and who we're going to be giving it to.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And yeah, I guess I was kind of going unsaid that, we're going to try to support as many businesses as possible, but businesses that essentially have been impacted by the COVID crisis and need that support. We want to promote the community. We want to support businesses within the community, but the primary goal is to support businesses that have been impacted, by the economic crisis here.
I think Tom's presentation spoke to the fact that we have to look back at their 2019 fiscals and make decisions based on that. We're not trying to find somebody who, didn't make or made too much in 2019 and give them a whole lot of money. We're going to do that comparison. And that's part of the information that they're going to have to provide you or somebody.
Yes, and I guess, and you'll see, when Courtney comes up and starts talking about what we're doing, we're not necessarily proposing a grant program for this immediate period. We're looking more at, like I said, things that will leverage, community support, community spending within the businesses to generate, funding that way. And then essentially we can keep money in our back pocket if down the road we see a need where certain businesses have a need for certain, for funding for a certain purpose. We can then approach it that way, but that's not the goal, at least for this near-term support, to just essentially start cutting checks to businesses.
Can I ask a question? Are we or have we in the past paid another business to help one of the businesses? So are we like partnering with a small business or a nonprofit in Independence or surrounding areas, paying them from our CARES money or whatever money's coming in, and then having them help businesses?
So in the technical assistance program with the CARES funding, yes, we did give funding to Indie Idea Hub, which is a local nonprofit microenterprise development organization. That organization then essentially paid for local business consultants to work with the individual businesses to deliver that technical support program.
We paid Indie Hub, the nonprofit, to work with people that were going to help the businesses.
So we essentially contracted with
like they're a broker or something?
We contracted with Indie Idea Hub to deliver a technical assistance program, essentially so that we didn't have to do all of the legwork ourselves.
Okay. How much money did we pay to Indie Hub?
It was, I believe, 40,000. It was a partner, Monmouth got in as well, and I believe it was a total of 70 between Independence.
So they kind of brokered or helped with packages to get other technical support to help small businesses. I didn't understand that. So about 40,000 to Indie Hub. Okay.
And on with that, with which Councilor Job was just saying, we need to be able to quantify how this money is actually helped other businesses. We can't just say that we've given this money to the Indie Hub and they've gone out. We need to be able to prove that it's helped people. We need to be able to see where this money is going, follow it, see how much it's helping businesses before we just continue to throw money at this.
Yeah, and actually, Kate Schwarzler, who's the president of Indie Idea Hub, came and delivered a presentation to council reporting on the results of that technical assistance program, and I'd be happy to redistribute that if need be.
I think there's been plenty of testimonial evidence from some of our small businesses as to how this program has helped them in a number of ways. I do know that there's a difference sometimes in the impact on a service-related business and on a food service business. It can be much more difficult for a food service, for instance, to weather these times when you have to have the business closed and so on, than it can be for a service industry.
C Street Salon was completely shut down, weren't they? Is that not true? I think the salons were shut down too, so I do think, I mean, you can do takeout with food, but with the salons, they were ordered to shut their doors,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, continue,
We just
please.
need to be able to prove that the money is going to be spent wisely. If it's not going to be spent wisely, then we can't keep funding these things.
Yep, no, I agree completely, and that will be part of our work is to make sure we're tracking and reporting on the deliverables and the impact of any of these programs. So then, the last piece of this, in terms of how we're approaching this is really, the goal is to generate and sustain momentum. Tom kind of talked about this. We did, frankly, like I said, had a lot of success with the CARES money. There's been a little bit of a pause. We hope to pick that back up and generate, again, kind of that public interest, create the buzz, get people excited about supporting local businesses, because the winter is going to be hard. And so get the community really kind of backing the businesses more. And then, again, the other piece is as we're developing and implementing some of these programs, we're going to be, reaching out to and interacting regularly with the business owners. And so we'll, hope be kind of maintaining that connection, that communication, hearing, common issues, common challenges, and that's going to help us guide, the programs that we develop, down the road, once the potential matching funds come out. So again, as we've established, when we will kind of continue to have communications, kind of real-time knowledge about what the business owners need in terms of support or what they don't need in terms of support, so that as these grant programs come out from the state or from the feds, we can then be a lot more targeted and a lot more thoughtful in terms of what we try to do. If we do a technical assistance program, specifically what kind of support is needed, and being able to roll out those types of really targeted programs. And then, of course, being able to pair that with easily measurable impacts as well. So, like I said, this is really kind of largely near-term projects. I think they're I'm going to turn it over to Courtney here in a second. The worksheet that we're talking about doing for the near term here is, I don't want to say simple because it's going to take a fair bit of work, but it's not as complex as something like a grant program or a technical assistance program. We're looking for sort of quick hit, quick successes that we can do to kind of get, kind of build up our businesses within, through the winter here. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, and she's going to talk a little bit about what we're looking to do.
Good evening and welcome.
Hello, good evening. Kind of before I get started into the projects, I thought I would just mention that in the talks that I've been having with business owners, I kind of keep hearing the same 4 things across the board that they seem to be struggling with, that they're looking for support for. And the first one is definitely, most of them are mentally exhausted, I think, from COVID. Right now there's a big staffing issue that many of them are trying to find staffing. And there's a ton of businesses hiring right now, and then they don't have the time for the promotion that they need for their business. And then as well, many are just nervous, I think, about what the future holds financially. So a lot of these projects that we've created are kind of in response to a lot of those conversations. We're hopeful that the things that we're creating for the fall and winter are going to kind of help take some of that load off of the business owner's shoulders and get customers in downtown, new and existing, in their doors, supporting them in person and online. So kind of our first projects begin in October. We're kind of hitting that staffing issue head on with the downtown job fair is kind of one of the things, the ideas that we had planned. Right now we're throwing around October 11th. Like I said, with so many businesses hiring right now, we thought this might be a way to cut through that noise and draw people to work in Independence. We'll be inviting businesses inside and outside of downtown to participate. So those who reside outside of downtown can set up a tent at the plaza and participate that way. We'll have music and a raffle and try to draw as many people in to get applications or on-site interviews and try to help with that staffing issue.
Courtney, because I realize everybody's strapped right now, isn't it all possible to open that up to businesses in Monmouth too? Just so that Monmouth doesn't have to do all this planning and kind of replicate the same thing there?
Yeah, I am not sure. I would think it would be a possibility, but we'd probably have to discuss that.
Okay.
But great suggestion. So then another thing that we're doing in October is our downtown lighting project. This is one I'm very excited about because we've been talking with business owners for the last few years, even since I would say, the outreach of Vision 2040. Many have said, when winter comes, downtown gets very dark, and it's not a very inviting atmosphere. I always say more lighting is more inviting. So definitely the brighter the downtown is during the season, the more welcoming the community is. And so we are looking at working with a lighting contractor. This is one kind of mock-up that they did that you can kind of see where we would be hanging cafe lights above the sidewalks in downtown, all the way from Mangiare to Central Martial Arts, and then on the other side from Brew to Musical Independence, working with the existing light poles that we have and connecting it with the buildings. And so that's a project that we're hopeful to get off the ground at the end of October to kind of beat that winter darkness that's coming. So content for Experience Independence. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Experience Independence, but that is a project that our team has been working on for the last 8 months. It's a visitor website, but we know that locals will really love it too. It's got a lot of great information about Independence, restaurant, bars, where to stay, things to do when you're in town and in the area, and then of course a lot of events and activities that are coming up. And so I know that the community has really talked about kind of a central place for a lot of those city events, and so I think in terms of communication, this is a great tool that will be coming out. But in creating a brand new website, we're finding that we have a lot of content that's needed for it. And so some of this funding would be used to kind of hire writers to help with those articles, the business stories, and some of the local write-ups, as well as getting some more photos of some businesses that we don't have great imagery for to promote. And then also, summer seems to be very well documented in Independence, but we're missing kind of that fall and winter, those fall and winter photos to really promote kind of the off-season of Independence as well. So those will be used not only on the website, but in social media, in other marketing ways, all that content, and then trying to drive people back to the actual website as well, the Experience Independence website. Did you want to say anything about Experience Independence? Okay. And then the last day of October is Halloween. And so events always bring in a lot of business for our downtown businesses. And so we want to do a Halloween harvest party kind of for downtown and for the community. We're looking at hiring Doc Titus, who, if you're familiar with Bowman's Harvest Festival, he's the DJ there, and he is just a ball of energy. He's a lot of fun, and he does a great kids program. And so we would be doing that down in the park, and then partnering with the downtown businesses, similar to what we did with the pumpkin picking in the park last year. That was super successful. A lot of businesses saw, many of them sold out of treats within an hour. So they're excited for it to basically take treats and sweets that they've already created because of the season and kind of put it in kind of a marketing flyer that you see there, where we're just promoting what they've already created, no additional work, no additional stress.
Courtney?
Yes.
Is that going to be,
Hi, sorry.
is that going to be on Sunday or the whole weekend?
That will be on Sunday, probably midday.
Okay, do be aware that the library here and in Independence will be running a trick-or-treat downtown on Saturday.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Here and in Monmouth, sorry.
Yes, yeah. I gotcha. Okay, moving on to November, December, January. So these promotions kind of overrun months. They run for multiple months. And so the goal here is to shop local. That's kind of what we're promoting during the holiday season. This Shop Polk County e-gift card promotion was actually an idea that we got from Harney County. They did stuff with they used this program with their CARES Act funds, and found that there was a lot of success there for businesses, and so we're going to try to test it out. It's a project that we're working with Monmouth and Dallas on, so we'll all be kind of putting into a fund to have a Polk County gift card, and those who purchase a gift card, at least during this promotional period, would also get a free gift card of that same amount. So if I purchased a $20 gift card, I would get a $20 gift card for shopping local. So that's another win-win for the community and for business owners, where they're shopping local and then getting rewarded for it. What's great about this promotion is that, once it's created, we now have a Shop Polk County gift card that we can use at any time of the year. It just so happens to be, this is kind of like when we're doing that promotion. It's really easy for businesses to participate as well. As long as they have a square, they can accept these gift cards. And then the Glow Holiday Market and Lights. Last year, we heard a lot of positive feedback from both the community and businesses about Glow lighting down at the park. Several businesses that are open later said that they saw more foot traffic just for Glow than in previous years during that same time, which is a great compliment, especially in a time of COVID where we would think that foot traffic may be lower. And so we are bringing it back. We're adding more lighting. We're adding some theme to it. And then we also have a community member that loved it so much that they're coming in and we're working together to create a holiday market aspect for it as well. Again, we're really pushing that shop local during the holiday season, and having that holiday market that's going to run every Saturday of the holiday season, I think is really going to make people think of Independence when they think of shopping for gifts for the holidays. And so
Just so you know, that holiday market's really my idea. They stole it.
Oh.
I've been wanting to do it for years. So I'm kind of curious as to what kind of budget you're talking about with what you've got currently and what you plan to do this year. Do you have any kind of ballpark? I'm not
Sorry,
being
just for the-
critical, I'm just curious.
just for Glow or for
Yeah,
all the
just for
projects
Glow,
that I've
just
just
for
been
Glow.
talking about?
Just for Glow.
For Glow, we're talking right around 15,000.
Okay. I want to know how much to ask Tom for when I want to do the holiday market.
Well, yeah, right. Okay, so more lights, a special theme this year, and then, like I said, really pushing that shop local by having a holiday market, more retail in town during that time. And then February is kind of our Love Local Scratch It. The Scratch It promotions did so amazing this last year that we did several of them. It's just one of those win-win-win programs where community members, they need to come into a business, make a purchase to receive a Scratch It, and then they feel rewarded for shopping local, but then they have to return a return visit in order to use that Scratch It. So it was one of those things where business owners were seeing people spend exponentially more than what the Scratch It was worth. I think many people felt like it was free money so they could spend more, and so that really, I think many business owners are going to be excited to see that program back, especially in February, which, as we know historically with business owners, is one of the toughest months of winter. So that
And if I can interrupt one more time, that is also going to run concurrently with the Independence Downtown Association Hearts Project.
Yes, Walk of Hearts will be right
Walk of
around that
Hearts.
time. And that is, the Love Local is right for that February 14th holiday theme. So, like I said, this program kind of checks all the boxes. It provides business for, or returns for business owners, new customers, and then buzz downtown. And so this is just another one of those examples of really leveraging those funds to maximize the profits for business owners. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that we were short on time last year for the CARES funds, and so I feel like communication did suffer because of that. But now, having so much time in advance of a lot of these programs, I think communication for the community and to our council is going to be a lot better because we have the time to do so. So thank you so much. And
I had a question.
Go for it.
Do you have a kind of a total expenditure for this immediate? This is all pretty much all promotion, which sounds
Yep.
great, but
You're stealing my talking
I'm
points.
sorry.
Yeah, no, so yeah, we're looking at roughly about 55,000 for kind of the entirety of these projects that Courtney just talked about. And as you can tell, we are really kind of focusing more on the promotional side and, frankly, learning lessons, that we learned from the last time around in terms of some events and some activities and some programs that really worked and had that sort of broad-based impact. And so we're really trying to just essentially replicate and expand upon some of those. And also, like I said, kind of do some broader things that can, that we can essentially talk about as targeted towards COVID impacted businesses that will benefit all of the businesses, in the downtown or who are part of these promotions. And so then, to that end, we're targeting about 55,000 for this work, and we're deliberately reserving the remainder of those funds because, as Tom said, as we get closer to the end of the year, we expect the state and hopefully maybe the county and maybe the feds to start coming out with some grant programs saying, hey, we've got a grant program to fund technical assistance. Give us your proposals, and then we will have a better idea of what our businesses need, the opportunities there, and we'll be able to then leverage our money to pull some funds from the state, and match it with our own funds to be able to do either a more significant program than we would have otherwise, or the same size program, but just with half of our money and half of with the state money. So that's really kind of the goal of what we're trying to do here. Happy to answer questions. Tom, I don't know if you had a wrap up after me, or yeah, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Karen, can we have a copy of that slide deck too? Thank you.
Yes. So first off, I just want to wrap up on a couple things. One is kind of this question that's been brought up of, equity versus equality. So, equality being providing, what people need in order to succeed, where equity is more providing everybody exactly the same amount. And that's what you really saw during the CARES program, was the limitations, because that funding package we put together was so quick, and the way that the state distributed those monies and we could access them, it was all about equity. You were giving pretty much everybody exactly the same amount of money. The nice thing about the ARPA program is there's a lot more flexibility to actually get to that equality question, which is, I think, really important. And we're going to really push the state to make sure that they don't fall into that trap of just doing, the same thing for everybody so everybody gets the same amount of money, because there are differences. Businesses were impacted differently, and there needs to be good criteria and good ways to sort through that and make sure that the money gets to where it's at. So have more time. The rules are different. We'll work with the state to make sure that, the flexibility is put into these programs. And we'll focus on that as well. The last thing I just want to talk about, because Mary, you asked me to mention this, and I didn't want to let the people who showed up go away without mentioning anything about the sports park, was kind of just where that's at. As you noticed when I was talking about where the grant opportunities are going to be there, you didn't see anything for parks and those kind of facilities, and that's really not a surprise. The federal government in particular looks at parks, sports parks, activities as really being a local responsibility. And so they typically don't fund those kind of programs very often. But that doesn't mean that we aren't thinking ahead and trying to figure out, okay, how can we get ourselves best positioned to make sure that we can take grant opportunities as they come up. So
I have a question on that. That wouldn't fall under tourism?
Can you let me finish?
Oh, sure.
So the state, is going to, the state does have programs for grant opportunities, but probably the most important grant opportunities is for private grants. There are private grants out there that typically fund these type of programs. But in order to get to that point, you need to have a really good plan. You need to have a really good citizen involvement plan. You need to have really gone out and figured out exactly what it is you're trying to do, how much it's going to cost, how you're going to construct it. And there's a lot of unanswered questions that we have about the sports park. And that's what we talked about when we did the 2040 vision plan, and specifically when we talked about the goal setting from council, was to go and figure this out so that we can position ourselves to actually get the money in place that we need to do this. And so we're putting together an RFP to hire a consultant, because what our goal is to really get the fundamental answers to being able to go chase these grant funds down as soon as we possibly can. And so I've gone through that a couple times. I still have one more pass to go through it all. Let Sean take a look at it. But we're hoping to get that RFP out in the next couple of weeks, get a consultant hired, and really get to the bottom of these questions so that we can start figuring out what opportunities those are. Yes, tourism dollars are part of ARPA, but I don't think there's going to be significant monies for that type from the state, but that's to be seen, and I want to make sure that we're in a position to be able to chase those monies, whatever source that is, as quickly as we can to make that happen. So that RFP, the consultant report, is going to be critical to giving us the information we need to do that. It's no different than doing a feasibility study or design of a particular project that allows us to then go chase grants. We do that all the time. And matter of fact, later tonight, you're going to have something on the agenda for finishing the design of Polk Well 4. And that's intentional, because if we have the design of that done, then we know that water grants are going to be available. then we can go pay for that infrastructure with our matching funds and basically be in a position to not put that on our ratepayers. I mean, the bottom line is, when I was hired here, I was told, make sure that we're taking care of our ratepayers and doing everything we can to keep our rates in line. And every time we get a grant for a water project or for a sewer project or for a street project, that directly equates to us not having to change our rates or, getting into a positive position. So we're taking care of our infrastructure, we're taking care of our ratepayers over time. So that's kind of the goals there. I just wanted to let you know that. I didn't want the people who came and talked about the sports park to know that we're not doing anything. We are. We're just trying to get all of our ducks in a row so we can be as competitive as we can when the opportunities come up.
To that end, Tom, what is the plan for the sports parks feasibility study that you were thinking about doing? Is that still on the agenda?
This is what this RFP will do.
That's what the funding is for?
Yeah, and council approved that in the budget, so we have money to actually bring a consultant on and to do this. We just need to go out and do the public process in order to make sure we're following state contracting rules and get somebody on board in a proper manner so they can assist us with this to get this done. Because we don't have anywhere near the in-house resources to do something like that. So.
Great.
All right.
Thank you for the presentation. I think that was informative on many fronts.
Well, I knew it would take a bit of time, and I appreciate all the questions. We did mean this to be more of a work session format, so thank you for asking.
We'll look forward to your email. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving forward here. We have a, Mr. Bessemer, I think you're up again anyway. We're amending the municipal code related to alcohol in the park.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to sit over here for a minute.
That's fine.
So this is really pretty straightforward. This came from some weddings and things that we've seen going on in the park. We've seen people coming in with requests, which much less time frame. And we talked about this with council to see if you would be amenable to allowing at least those short events in parks to be able to be approved by the city manager rather than bringing them to council. So when we looked at it, it was really simple to make those changes. This doesn't in any way affect your guys' ability to approve liquor licenses for businesses and do your annual review of the businesses. This is really just activities in parks. So you can see before you on page 15 of 23, the marked up changes that we would do really just change the city council to city manager. And then there is an ordinance that does that.
So as the manager said, this is, we requested this and they brought it forward.
I have a couple of questions.
Please do.
So first of all, this would include things like the summer series. You would just take care of that and we wouldn't have to deal with that sort of thing? Or any event in the park?
That's correct.
Okay, the other thing, I was just kind of curious about the wording. It's actually not something you've changed, but alcoholic beverages is packaged in an individual container. Does that mean you cannot use, say, poured wine or, poured beer? Or is the wording maybe something we should look at changing? That's in B, under B, and the prohibited acts. I just bring that up because I'm assuming if it's like a wedding, or certainly the summer series, we're pouring these in individual containers, and I don't know if there's a legal term, package versus container.
Probably can't just use a trough.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we want to allow that.
But somebody could sell a can of beer and that would be okay to have in the park?
But
Yeah, it would be, because, it says except under the following conditions, so B would be as packaged in an individual container. So.
But you can still have like a cup of beer.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
I
I just checking.
Okay.
That's a good question. I have no idea what that is.
Great. Additional questions for the manager at this point? Okay, this is an action item, and since this is an ordinance, that it's the three-stepper.
I move to read the proposed ordinance Council Bill number 2021-08, in full as the text is contained in the council packet for the first time.
We have a motion,
Second.
second by Councilor Kaur. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed. Motion carries.
An ordinance amending Independence Municipal Code, Chapter 26, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Article 9, City Parks and Recreation Areas, and declaring an effective date.
Let's read the next one, please.
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2021-08 for the second time by title only.
Motion,
Second.
second by Morton. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you.
An ordinance amending Independence Municipal Code, Chapter 26, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Article 9, City Parks and Recreation Areas, and declaring an effective date.
Councilor Jobe, you want to do the next one?
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2021-08.
The motion,
Second.
second by
I
Cora.
second.
Already had one ahead of you. Thank you, Councilor Roden, though. All in favor, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Ordinance is passed and is assigned ordinance number 1592.
Okay, Mr. Pessamere, you've been busy tonight, so I think we get to do the Polk Street well design, a contract approval.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is one of the projects that I was talking about, is kind of us being strategic, setting ourselves up for being in a position to get grant monies for the actual construction of the well. This was in our capital improvement plan, and we talked about this earlier in the year when we went through this plan. We also have this money budgeted. We actually have money budgeted for the entire project, but we're really just asking for the design component at this point in time. And we'll probably put this project on hold until we are able to figure out what grant opportunities are out there. But I'm pretty confident that we will be able to get a fairly significant grant for this. I'm hoping, in the 80% grant, 20%, city funds. And so this is one of those projects that if we can do the front end work, make sure that we have the design done so we can actually implement the well in a timely manner, I think we'll be very competitive for those monies as they come forward. Really, this project is something we've been working on for a while. You don't just develop a municipal well without doing a lot of pre-work. So there actually is a small well that has been drilled on this site. We know exactly the quality of the water that we are going to be able to get out of the well. We know the quantity of the water that we're going to be able to get out of the well. And now we're moving forward to that, spending the real money, which is developing a drinking water source, essentially, from the site. So this will give us the engineering that we need to do. There's a fair amount of work to do. If you remember right, the pictures I showed you, the capital improvement plan, this is right down in the sports park near the boat ramp. That is a location that through a lot of geotechnical engineering was selected and actually turned out to be a great site for a new well. This will give us quite a bit of additional water. This should buy us a fairly significant amount of time before we need to develop other sources of water. We did really well this summer, well with our wells, I guess. With the capacity, I know there were a lot of concerns early in the summer about just exactly how wells would perform in the area. And we did drawdown tests every month and saw virtually no drawdown in our wells. So we did really well with our wells. Need to find another word there. This summer, and so we're happy about that. And this will really give us some redundancy and some ability to help Monmouth if they have an issue, and we are working on some interoperation agreements with them so the water can flow either way in case one of us does have an issue with our system. So we're excited to get this done, but we definitely want to get this design done. I've been pushing our engineer to get this done so that we can be ready to go for grants once they're available. There's a lot of additional work with there. As you know, there's no power down there in the park, so we have to run power a significant way to get to it. We also have to run water main, almost 2,000 feet to get down to the well as well. So with that, I'm going to get off of Wells and turn it over to you for questions or.
Questions?
Just a quick question. How long will it take them to produce this, this engineering design?
They'll get started right away. Matter of fact, they're raring to get started. This is probably like a 4-month design program.
So just, timing's just right then?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Great. Okay, it is an action item. If someone would suggest action, please.
I move to accept,
I will. I move to accept the proposal of $93,000 from West Tech Engineering and authorize the city manager to prepare and execute the contracted documents and any associated documents for the design of this project.
Thank you. I have a motion
second?
and a second from Core. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Councilors, general announcements. Councilor Morton, you're flagging me.
I just wanted to reiterate one more time, the Ghost Walk will happen this year on October 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. Meet at the top of the park. It is a free event. And also I wanted to express my appreciation that the city manager and the mayor are at our council disposal, at our disposal as individual council members to talk to us at any time. And every time I have asked for a get-together just to discuss current events, I've had an appointment with either one of them within days, sometimes hours, and I appreciate that transparency.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Somebody say it.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.